Surprise, motherfucker.
Yes, sir. We're officially back at it. This is Boog Nice coming at you, finally, with my top 10 Marvel Legends of 2019. Let's do it.
This ain't for no scalper. You a scalper? Then fuck out shit. This one's for them real collectors. That's army building and posing figures. Marvel Legends, imports, mini maybe I'm fucking with them. Hype beast, we know about you. Stay buying figs, don't know about it.
Alright, so I'm jumping right into this. I have no time to waste. We have Toy Fair 2020 looming on the horizon. I got a lot of catching up to do as far as recording other reviews, and then I'm going to have a lot of recording and editing to do for Toy Fair 2020. So, at the top of the list, my number 10 pick for my top 10 Marvel Legends of 2019 is going to be the 80th anniversary Hulk. More specifically, the Hulk that came in the 2-pack with Wolverine. I think this was a great figure, but it did leave a bit to be desired. I really do wish they could have worked out the butterfly joints, and he had the ability to move his arms as far forward as he could back. But we were long overdue for a new Hulk. They definitely stepped it up and gave us a great scope. And with the additional Hulks that they've been putting out, the Gray Hulk and the SDCC version of the Hulk, which was actually the first one, I think they did a really good job with this figure. Still, he was at the very top of my list because I do think they could have done just a little bit better. Honorable mention at number 10 is going to be the Armored Thanos Build-A-Figure Wave Hercules figure, which I thought was very, very good. He wasn't able to make my list, but good scope. I think what kept him off of my list was the fact that it wasn't a classic Hercules. I'd like that same scope, design, and determination put into a classic Hercules, and whatever year he comes out, he'll probably make my top 10. My number 9 choice is the Retro Collection White Suit Storm. One of the last figures that we needed to complete our 90s Jim Lee X-Men crew. Just a super duper clean figure, very well done, lacking in the accessories department, so that's why she's kind of high on the list. And in talking about other characters needed for our Jim Lee crew, honorable mention for the Love Triangle Jean Grey, who was the last figure that we needed for that crew. But Storm came out really nice, and then just recently we got that same figure with the black costume, so turned out to be great. Still waiting for that swimsuit Storm. This figure was very well done. Had she been packed in with an additional head sculpt and hands, I think it would have really took her over the top for me, and she would have made it closer to my number 1 slot. The number 8 slot is going to go to the Kingpin Build-A-Figure Wave Kingpin Build-A-Figure. There was really no other reason to get any of the figures from this wave except to complete this Build-A-Figure. He was the best thing about the wave. Very clean figure, huge improvement on the Toy Biz version. The fact that he was able to double as your Shadow King was genius, along with the additional head sculpt for Kingpin. And I do think that we will see this guy again in a different colored suit at some point, just like they did the Toy Biz version back in the day. Excellent sculpt and design here from Hasbro. One of the best on the year for sure. My number 7 slot is going to go to the Wendigo Build-A-Figure Wave Mr. Sinister figure. Another instance where Hasbro trounced the previous Toy Biz version, in my opinion, slightly, because I do think that this Mr. Sinister should have been packed in with an additional head sculpt, a more relaxed, neutral head sculpt, and I do think he should have been packed in with additional hands. If that were the case, this would have put this figure closer to the number 1 slot on my list, but it was a long overdue figure and it was really nicely done. A great scope, they picked a great body mold, the paint applications were top notch, and this was absolutely one of the best on the year. My number 6 choice is going to be the Ultimate Riders Professor X. Another figure that put us in the home stretch of completing our Jim Lee X-Men crew, the actual leader who was packed in with the Cerebro helmet, and a little bonus, that additional head that we needed to pop on the Kingpin Build-A-Figure body and have a whole new figure, a Shadow King, a longtime X-Men foe, an arch nemesis of Professor X. The fact that we finally got Professor X in his hover chair was just golden, no pun intended. Professor X was decked out in his classic green suit, and I think they did a great job on the head sculpt. We already know what that body mold was about. It definitely leaves the door open for us to get the Professor in a different color suit and maybe a more modern chair at some point. And although the effect that came with the Cerebro helmet was a little questionable, I appreciate the effort, and also appreciate them packing in the effect to have the hover chair hover. If you don't want to use that, ACBA flight stand worked perfectly in that little groove as well. So a lot of playability, a lot of fun factor with this figure. This was definitely worth the price tag. Really well done. Great figure. The fifth slot is going to go to the 80th anniversary Captain America. The 80th anniversary line has just been killing it. Finally, we get Cap with the proper textured costume on the upper torso, the right stature, the right body mold, the interchangeable hands, the two heads to represent two different artists' renditions of Captain America. Probably my only gripes were the fact that the shield was a little small and they need to update that clipping mechanism on the shield, and that I probably would have preferred a lighter blue costume. Not that the darker blue hasn't appeared in comics, and I'm sure we will get the lighter blue at some point, but this was just a great figure all around, and he looks so good with the other Avengers. And a quick honorable mention at the fifth slot, I'm going to give it to the Wendigo Build-A-Figure Wave X-Force Wolverine. Somehow Wolverine makes it in some way, shape, or form into every top 10 because of the body mold that Hasbro has picked for Wolverine. It is just wonderful. But the thing that I really liked about this figure is the way they designed the claws. The best to date, in my opinion. Even though they were a little stylized, they were sturdy, they weren't bent out of the package, they weren't easy to bend, and they look really good. And I'm excited for the possibilities of them completing some X-Force teams for us with Hasbro's modern approach to making figures. My number 4 slot is going to go to the Caliban Build-A-Figure Wave Beast, one of my most anticipated figures from 2019, and while it didn't fully disappoint, I don't feel like it was the unanimous victory over the Toy Biz version that I would have hoped for. The Toy Biz version still rivals this figure a bit, and we saw some people even kit bashing parts from the Toy Biz version onto this version. My major issue with this figure was they didn't pack in one additional head sculpt that would allow you to have him in a neutral, relaxed state. Hasbro knows the stakes. They know that the majority of the people into Marvel Legends are doing toy photography, and we need those options. The fact that you could display him with only one emotion represented was kind of a buzzkill in my opinion. The additional hands were great. It was a wonderful sculpt. I love the color of the figure. It was a very, very nice figure overall. Still made my list, pretty high on the list, but definitely could have came in maybe as my number 1 figure had he been packed in with an additional head and maybe a book. How they didn't give my man Beast a book? My number 3 slot is going to go to another 80th anniversary figure, the 80th anniversary Iron Man. I love the precedent that the Invincible Iron Man or the all new, all different Iron Man set for Hasbro as far as them really putting together a concentrated effort to make a good Iron Man figure. We have had a lot of Iron Man figures from Toy Biz and Hasbro that have been awful, all undersized. Finally, they got the size right with these 2 Iron Man figures. It looks like there is a man inside of a suit of armor, and they gave us the classic Iron Man that we all know and love in this 80th anniversary version. Extra accessories, an extra unmasked Tony Stark head sculpt, an extra Iron Man helmet for a more classic look on the classic look. And listen, I'm going to tell you right now, Mezco put out one of their best figures ever in terms of their take on the classic Iron Man figure. And the 80th anniversary $30 Marvel Legends figure absolutely rivals the Mezco version. Fight me. This was one of the best on the year. One of my favorites. It's up there in the top 3 from 2019 because it deserves it. Wonderful sculpt. He looks great side by side with the other 2 members of the Big 3, and furthermore with the other members of the Avengers team in totality. Great job. And my number 2 slot is going to go to another 80th anniversary figure, the 80th anniversary Thor. It seems like forever and a day has passed since we've gotten a Thor that we love. Toy Biz tried a bunch of times. Hasbro has tried a bunch of times. They had the scale all over the place. He's been too small. He's been too big. Finally, within the 80th anniversary line, they got it right. I think he's the right size. I think he looks great next to his other teammates. I think the color scheme was great. It was a great sculpt. Only thing they probably could have included was a few more hands, maybe some option to remove the cape or a different cape that was molded in a different way. But I mean, this was a solid figure, and I'm happy for the possibilities of more Thor characters and more Thors. If you weren't able to pick up this figure in 2019, you better do it fast. Once the on-shelf stock dries up, I think this guy is going to shoot up in price and you're going to be asked out. One of the best on the year, absolutely no doubt about it. Number 2, Thor. And my number 1 slot for my most favorite, most adored, most happy to own Marvel Legend of 2019 may come as a surprise to you. It's a surprise to me, but statistically, it just had to be. It's going to be the Wendigo Build-A-Figure Wave Nightcrawler figure. Now, I did not expect to put this guy at my top slot, but there was a few things that I had to factor in here. First of all, it shits on the Toy Biz version. We loved the Toy Biz version when it was out, and it still holds up as a decent Toy Biz figure for that time. However, this one is just better in every way, in my opinion. He had the 3 heads, he had an interchangeable hand, should have had maybe a couple of more hands. The sword, all of the head sculpts were great. It was a brand new buck, perfectly done for Nightcrawler. One of my only other gripes is that the tail didn't have the bendy wire, but you could easily customize that and fix it up. And listen, when I'm judging whether or not a figure is really good, and one of my favorite figures is whether or not I would purchase that figure multiple times. And I would absolutely purchase this Nightcrawler figure up to 5 times. Not only to own extras of it just in the event that I do something crazy posing it and I break one, but because it's a great character for still motion displays. Once we do finally get a good BAMF effect with Nightcrawler, if you have multiples of this guy, it's gonna look great in displays with the right lighting. You know, everything that I do as far as collecting is always centered around ACBA and toy photography and what I could do with them. What's going to happen when I start to actually play with my toys and pose them up and do setups and take pictures and all of that good stuff. And this guy is super photogenic. It's just a really good figure all around. Great articulation, great sculpt, great accessories. I'm excited for them to reuse this body mold because they will. They'll give us a Zazel or other versions of Nightcrawler in different costumes. I'm sure we will get the AOA Nightcrawler on this buck as well. There's no way they're going to waste a brand new buck and not utilize it as much as possible. So Nightcrawler was one of my favorites, my top favorite on the year of 2019, and that's what it is. Thanks for hanging out. As always, rate, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, peace.